So welcome back to this next part. In this video, we are going to look at our API. We're going to try and hunt down an API that's going to provide us with our YouTube feed. So on the screen at the moment, you're looking at a great website called RapidAPI. I use this website to hunt down APIs that I need to use for my own projects. We're going to use this hub to find an API that's going to work for our YouTube application. So the first thing you're going to need to do is head yourself over to rapidapi.com. Once you're there, you need to create a free account. So simply click the sign up. I've already got an account, so I'm just going to log straight in. So here we are on the RapidAPI dashboard. You're presented here with a whole host of different APIs that you can use in your projects. Now, some of the APIs are free to use, some are paid for, but some are also a freemium model, which basically means that you kind of get so many requests before you start paying for them. Now, the API that we're going to use for our YouTube application is a freemium type model, but there's plenty of requests there for us to be able to build up our application and be able to perform all the level of queries that we need to do. So without further ado, let's start looking for the API that we need to look for. So we're just going to go up to the top here and we're going to type in YouTube and just do a bit of a slow there and just do a search here, view all the results. Now, as you sort of scroll down, there's lots of different options available to you. So, for example, you can click onto this one, for example. You can look at, once it comes up, you look at the different kind of API endpoints that this one particularly has. You've kind of got like pricing, and it kind of says that you've got like 100 a day that you can actually request for free, well, 30,000 a day if you want to pay $20 a month. We're not interested in that particular API. Let's just move back to the search results. Let's move down. Now we're looking for one called YouTube data. So let me just move over to the next screen. Let's find it here. Incidentally, I will put the link into the description. So of course that should just take you straight to the YouTube feed. I'll find it here in a second. Where are you now? Where are you now? There we go. YouTube data. Let's click on that. So I've done a little bit of research before I actually recorded this video here to look at the APIs that's going to be of value to us. So this particular API has a search endpoint, so we know that we can perform video queries. So if I just hit search there, and what I can actually do is I can actually look at the example responses. So in here you can see, so if we were to invoke this particular API and we was to pass a query of movie in, this is an example of the response that we actually get back. So if you remember in one of my previous videos where we talked about the API, I kind of showed you a bit of a snippet to the response that actually comes back. So you can see here, this is the response that you would have seen something very similar to this in that previous video. So I think this pretty well much does everything we needed to do from a search perspective. We know that we can search YouTube. We know that we're going to get a number of different videos back, which is great. There's also in this particular search response, though, you also will see channels come back as well in this response, and we're going to need to filter that out when we do a search. But I'll show you how to do that in FlutterFlow, and it's really easy to do. So I think this is good. This provides us with some additional sort of features as well. And I did spot with this API that there's this section called refinements. Now remember in our previous video when we were talking about the design of our application, we looked at the pills across the top of it and we kind of scratched our head a little bit thinking, you know, what can we actually use that for? So this is really useful because this is returning back a series of refinements. So what will happen is we'll search for, say, FlutterFlow, for example, and then the refinements will show additional keywords that we can actually use to refine. So what we're going to do with inside the application is the pills are going to turn into refinements. So you better then, the user will do a search, they'll see the refinements come up, we'll be able to hit those refinements, we'll carry out another search and see the results based on that refinement. So we're definitely going to use that with inside our application. So that's a definite use case for the pills. So that's the search API. We've also got some other APIs here, which we can see here. We've got get video details. So if we wanted to do a query and we want to return back specific details about a video, then we've got that here as well. And you can see if we go up to example responses here, this will give you a good idea here of, like, you know, avatar details, cars, descriptions of the video, end screens, keywords, length, you know, you got it, it's there, and a various number of different sort of thumbnails. Now we don't need to use this particular endpoint, but one thing that does sort of provide some interest is channel, because if you remember in the design of our actual video, what we were going to do is when you actually click into an actual video, you're going to then see other video content from that particular author. Now there is actually this API that's there for us, so what we can do is we can pass in the channel ID from YouTube, and then we can return back additional details or additional kind of responses of different videos that author has created. So that's going to really work for us. So we're definitely going to hook onto this. So probably channel details is probably, in fact no, channel videos is the one that we're going to likely need. So we look at this, you can see here we've got a very similar shape to the search, and as you can see here there's a number of different videos, and each one of these videos, for example, provides us back some various details that we need about the actual video. So that is definitely going to come into use for us, so we're definitely going to hook onto that one with inside FlutterFlow. Now, in order for us to get started here, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to subscribe to this API. We're going to want to associate the use of this API with our new account, the RapidAPI account. And the way you do that is you just hit the subscribe and test button. So once you've found the API that you need, hit subscribe and test. It will come up with this information here. Of course, we're only interested in the basic here, which has got a 500 requests per month hard limit. So of course, once you've exceeded that, then you would need to move to a paid plan. Now, during our development of our application, what I've done is I've actually taken a request, I've actually stored that on my website, which I'll put a link in the description as well. So when we actually go to make a call to that API, we're going to use the sample message that I've got to build out the application, and then when we're ready, we'll then switch over to the API here to then start using a live API. It's just a quick way for us to get started during the design, so we don't exceed any of these limits here while you're sort of testing the application again and again and again. So we're just going to hit subscribe for now. We are now subscribed. So we go back to the endpoints. It should quite clearly say that we're now there, and we're now at a test endpoint stage. So we're just going to keep it here as it is. We've got particular sort of key details here that's going to be really important to us. So when we move over in just a moment to Postman, we're going to test the API, but we're going to need to carry some details across, which will be the API key and the host as well. So this is, sort of secret information here, the API key and the host, and I've kind of just sort of hidden just a few characters there because I don't obviously want this API to be used while people are kind of learning to build their application. So now we've got that, let's move over to Postman. Let's do a quick test of the API just to make sure that we're getting all these details back. We'll set ourselves up with a Postman workspace so then we can come back again and we can see the sample data, and we've got something that we can cross-reference. So let's move over to Postman now. So here we are then on Postman.com. We're going to use Postman.com to invoke our APIs that we're going to store within inside the platform, and then we're going to be able to come back to them again, and we're going to be able to then sort of invoke them. We're going to have a look at the responses. We can keep track of the samples and all that kind of stuff. It's really straightforward to use, and it's just a great website for doing this type of work, but certainly when you're working with APIs. So please do register or sign in, and let's get ourselves onto the dashboard. So here we are then onto the dashboard of my account. So it's a brand new account generally, so it should look very similar to yours. We're going to go up to the workspace section up the top there, just going to click that and drop it down and hit create workspace. So everything's going to start with a workspace for us. So we're just going to call this, I don't know, Digital Pros Workspace, something along those lines. Okay, hit personal there and hit create workspace. Of course, you can call it whatever you like. Now within inside our collection, we're going to create a brand new collection. So this is really just kind of a group of requests that we're going to make. So everything we're going to do here is going to be for YouTube. So let's create in a collection. So there is on the left hand side, it's got a new collection. We can give our collection a name. So let's just call this say YouTube. Because of course you might have a weather API or a football API or something like that. You can create collections for all of those for your own project. Just hit enter there, and then we've now got a YouTube collection. So next up, we're going to set up the API request that we're going to make into our search API that we've just subscribed to with inside RapidAPI. So just hit the add request option just there. And by default, it will give you a kind of a new request as a get request. So this is where we're just going to make a call in to return some data back. So this request, we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call it search, because that's exactly what we're going to do. Press enter, and now we've got that set. The next bit that we're going to need to do is we're going to end up having to head back over to the RapidAPI account, and we're going to have to pull some details in from over there. So let's go to the YouTube feed, the YouTube data API call. And in here, we've got a couple of bits that we're going to need. The first part of it is going to be the URL that we're going to call. So I'm just going to select the search there. And incidentally, just make sure you've got search selected on the left-hand side so you're getting the right URL. Move back over to Postman, and we're just going to go over to the request get URL here and just paste that in there. So that's the URL in. The next bit we're going to need to do is we're going to have to pass some headers across. We're going to have to do this in FlutterFlow as well, but we need to do it here. So just hit the headers option, and we're going to put 2 keys and some 2 values in here. So go back over to your RapidAPI. You can see here that we have some headers. Now, one is the API key and one is the host, but these are required parameters that we need to pass along with our GET request in order for us to establish a connection, a kind of like an authorized connection to the API. Just select them over here. Just hit Control-C. So we're just going to put them back in here. So just put the value in there now, and then we'll come back. We've gone a little bit backwards here. Let's grab the header name. Just grab this, and then just paste that in there. And then for our next one, let's grab the API host. Just copy that, move that over here, and then just finally capture this value here and just put that in here. So we've got our header set up. Now just move back over to our params. Now parameters that we're going to need to pass into our GET request. If you look here, it's asking down here for optional parameters. So we've got Q here, which will stand for query. We need to pass in the name that we need to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put the Q there for query, and the value we're going to pass in is FlutterFlow. We could put anything we like there. And that's what will be passed over into the GET request that you can see just here. So I can hit send now, send that over, and I should get a result set back. There we go. Excellent. That's exactly what we're expecting. So we're getting a request. And of course, if you had made a mistake on the API key or you didn't pass those headers over correctly, then you would have got an error message back from the API, probably like an unauthorized error or something like that. So this is pretty familiar with us. We've already looked at this in the previous, in the RapidAPI sort of response that we got there as just a sample for movies. So we're not going to worry too much about this at this stage. One thing that I do want to point out though is with inside Postman, you can actually save this request so you can then refer to it later. So if I, so save just saves you keep doing queries, right? So if you just hit save up here, what you'll see is that the response will be saved and you can kind of refer back to it again. And you'll see that in a second when we kind of refresh. So just hit the save and we can come back and we can see the results at another point. So just move back over to our API. We've also got the channel. This is the other API call that we're going to need to make. So we just need to have a look at the channel videos request. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to create another GET request. We're just going to pass that over, and I'm going to quickly set up the other headers as well. So I'll quickly do that and we'll see what the result of that looks like. Okay, to save a bit of time, I've put in our headers, I've put in the URL to the channels, so that's just that simple request there. I've just copied and pasted it from here and the details that we need. And I've pasted it into these boxes here, and I've also gone to params and I've put an ID in because it's the ID that we're going to need to pass in here. This is like a sample ID. So what we're going to quickly do is we're going to just run our query in the search just to prove. In fact, we've already got one here. So I'm just going to grab that there because that's the channel ID. Just to prove this is working, let's go over to channel details, go to the ID, paste that in there, hit send, and we should see the response back. So that's now returning back all of the videos, or at least a number of videos for that particular channel. So as I just mentioned before, I made a bit of a mistake because I told you to hit the save option up here, which just, of course, just saves the details into the collection. But what you want to do is click the save response. And just save as an example. And as you can see now, we have an example that's actually associated with the GET request. So we'll go back to search. We'll just hit the save response option, save as an example. And it means that now you can come back to this again and again and again. You then can just look at the samples instead of keep doing the searches to see the results. So just a quick little tip there, which is quite handy just to keep those aside. And of course, they'll be saved into your collection here and you'll be able to come back at any point and see those. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually start to use these API responses within inside our application. What we're going to do though is we're going to keep this on file for just a bit. We've got Postman set up. We're definitely going to use it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to connect to another API response just as a sample, just so we can then build out the UI, and then we'll switch it to use these APIs within inside our application. So let's get cracking on that. So here we are back in FlutterFlow. We are going to connect our application up to our sample API response so we can start to get ourselves ready for us to build out the UI with some more dynamic data. So the first thing that we're going to need to do, we're going to need to set FlutterFlow up to connect to our remote API. So let's move over to the API option here, which is this little symbol just here on the left-hand side. Let's just press that. And we're into the API call section. So we're just going to hit plus here and we're going to create an API call. And then for our API call name, we're going to call this just simply search. Inside the get, because it's going to be the requesting for our get request as we did in Postman, we're just going to paste in the sample link that I've provided. And what this does is this just provides back just FlutterFlow as a sample response. So you get a number of videos that come back. We'll swap that out, of course, to the real API in a later video. But for now, we'll just use that as a test to build out our API. So the next up, we're going to just hit add call. And we're going to do response and test. So let's see that what we get back. If I hit the test API call, we should see something very, very similar to what we had witnessed inside Postman. So this just gives you a little preview, which is perfect for us. So just a little bit of more work that we need to do here. So if you recall that I mentioned previously that with inside the API response, we're not only are we getting videos, but we're also getting one or more channels come back as well. Now we're really not interested in channels. We only want to return back the video. So if you look here in the API response, we've got the contents, and with inside the contents, we have a channel. But down here, we then have type video. So we got channel and we got video. Now we need to filter out the channels because we're just not interested in those, and FlutterFlow makes it really easy for us to do that. So down the bottom here we've got this thing called JSON paths. And what this will allow us to do is this will allow us to specify a path which will allow us to do a little bit of filtering to return back just the detail that we actually need, just the videos that we need. And it's really straightforward to do. So I can do that now. Let's hit on add JSON path. So we started with $1. So we're going to start at the root of our response that's come back. And we're just going to start moving down the hierarchy of the response that comes back. So if I put a period in here, a full stop, and type in contents, then you can see here what we've done is we've just brought everything back with inside this section here. So we dropped into contents and we bring it back everything here. And you can see here from this preview that you see, and this pretty well much shows you that we're now at that particular level. What we can then do is we can then start doing a little bit of filtering, and we can say, right, I want everything that's in there, but actually I just want you to bring me back video. And what that will do is that will then filter out this channel, and we're going to bring back the actual videos themselves. So as you can see here, we're pulling all of these out here in the video. So if I now just preview this, you'll see that in view. As you can see, we have the author, and we're seeing a number of different videos here. And of course, if I just demonstrate that again by just changing video to then to channel, you'll see that we should just bring back the one, because we know there's only one in this response. Now we're just not interested in that. So let's just keep this as video. And what you'll do is you'll see that we'll be using this very shortly when we are building our UI. So I'm just going to, in this name here, I'm just going to change this to put video. And then that's all that we're going to do. We're just going to then literally save that. So we can now refer to this name later in our UI to then refer to this set of data that we're going to need to return back. And you'll see how that works. It will all make sense in a moment. So that's our API call. I'm pretty well much happy with the way that's been set up for now. Of course, we're going to come back here later. We're going to add in those headers. We're going to change the URL to the proper sort of endpoint from the actual main API, the Rapid API that we created earlier. But this will give us everything that we need to now start building out the user interface. So we're going to do that now. So let's move over to the UI builder. So now what we're going to do, we're going to now set our UI up to be able to make that call into our API. We want to store those results somewhere on the user's kind of mobile phone, and then we want to be able to then show those within inside the application itself. One thing we're also going to do is we're also going to set up this local variable that's going to kind of look after the initial search. So this is what, so when we create another screen where the user actually then carries out that search, inside the search history, we're going to want to allow the user to actually mark a search term as a favorite, and then that gets then persisted on the kind of the mobile device. device, and every time you load the application up, it then carries out that search. So we're going to set that up right now. So there's one section that we haven't been into yet, and that is the application state. So just click over here on the left hand side, and here we're going to set those two variables up. So we're going to hit the add state variable. So the first one that we're going to set up is the actual search results itself. So let's type that in, search results. Now the search results are going to be of type JSON, so this maps onto the API response that we've actually got coming back from the API. Now we do know we're going to get more than one that's going to come back, so we need a set list, and we don't need a persisted because of course it just get refreshed every single time. So let's hit create, and then the next variable that we're going to create is one up here called initial search. That's of type string, so it's just a piece of text. It's not a list because, as I said, it's just a single piece of text, and it is persisted, so we do need to store this value every single time. So we're just going to hit create, and then that's our application state created. So of course you'll learn more about application state as we move across the application, but some application state can be kind of like global throughout the whole of your mobile application, whereas some application state can be on a certain page. So of course once you move off of a page, then it can get destroyed and we don't need to see it again. So we'll cover some of those scenarios again in other videos, but for now that's all that we need for application state. So let's now move back over to the UI builder. So next up, we're at that stage now where we want to invoke our API because we need to flesh out this particular area here and show some repeated videos. So let's move over to the next part, which is going to be to do with actions. So ideally what's going to happen is that our users would have already done a search. They would have then marked a search term as favorite. We would then pick up that favorite that they've actually set, and then when the application loads, we'll carry out that search again. But of course, if that value has not been set, then we'll just present the user with a pretty much of a blank screen, and they would then need to go up to the search option to then bring up the search page. We'll then make that search, and then of course the results will then update on this particular page. So without further ado, let's move over to a new section that we haven't seen before, and that is this option here. So let's just make sure the home page is selected. Let's choose the option to open up the action flow editor, hit open, and then we will be presented with this particular screen. So at the top there it says on page load. As soon as our application page loads, the next series of actions are going to take place. What's really great about FlutterFlow is it gives you this visual flow of how all of these are going to kind of play out, and we're going to build that up right now in this particular example. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to put a conditional action in. We're going to want to say, has the user already marked or at least set a favorite term for us to search upon? If they haven't, well, we don't need to do anything, but if they have, we're going to want to invoke that API call. So let's go down to add conditional action. So at the top here, this is our condition. We need to check this value now. So at the very top here, just get it selected, and on the right hand side, we then need to then choose the actual action that we need to do. So we need to do a conditional check. So hit conditions, and it's going to be a single condition. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose first value, and we're going to choose our application state, our initial search value. So you're going to be able to set that variable from within inside the app state section. So choose app state. We're going to choose initial search. And we're going to say now, is it equal to, not equal to, is it set and not empty, or is not set or is empty? Well, we want to check to see if the value is set and that value is not empty. So it's going to be the third one we're going to choose here. Select that, hit confirm. And that now means we're going to go down one of two ways. We're either going to go down this particular route here because it's true, so that value is set and it's not empty. We're going to head in this direction. If it, of course, is not set, then we're going to end up down in this direction. We're not going to want to do anything here. So once we're moving down in this particular section, we're going to now want to make our API call. So we're just going to choose the plus here. We're going to add an action. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a series of actions that come up. We just want to choose the API call option. That's what we're going to do. We're going to, up the right here, we're going to need to set the name of the API. Now this is the API that we previously created a few moments ago, so let's select that and hit the search, and that is the API call. That's all we need to do here. The next part of the flow will be a condition on whether the API call has been successful or not. So of course it might not be successful. There could be an error come back or something like that. We're in this instance, we're just going to assume that actually our API is going to be successful. So we're going to then move over to this particular block here. So we're going to come down this path of true. Now once that API has succeeded, it's going to return back the data. We're going to need to do something with that data. Now if you remember, we created a variable variable for the search results, the app state variable. We are now going to load that variable up with a response back from our API. So we can do that really easily in FlutterFlow. We can just hit that plus option. We can go to add an action. And then on the right hand side, you've got a series of options come up. We're going to want to choose this one here called update app state. So choose that. And then up the top here, it says about setting the field. So we need to select that, and we've got these two fields that's come up. Of course, search results is the one that we're going to want because it's the type, it's the list of the JSON response, it's the API response that we got back, it's the videos that we've got. So let's just choose search results here. And then we're going to want to select it here, because we now need to select the type of update that we actually want to do, the state action we're going to do. Now, we've got a number of different options here, but in this instance, we're just going to want to set the value. We're going to want to take the API response and we're going to set that variable with the content of that response. So let's say set value, and then with inside here, we need to actually now give it a source now. So this is where it gets a little bit of interesting. You'll see similarities between the API setup that we just did. So with inside here, we're just going to say from variable, we're going to choose this option here, and what we're going to do here is it's going to be an action output. So it's the output of the action that we've got here, which is going to be our API response. So we're just going to choose action outputs, and we're going to choose the API result. So this is the result that's available to us at this particular area here. So we're going to choose API result, and then we're here. We're going to now want to pick out the content of what we need. So we're going to choose JSON body. We're going to choose here, and we're going to choose JSON path, and this is the name of the path that we set earlier on in the API setup, where we actually was drilling down into the videos. So we just want to choose video because that's what we set, and that is all that we need to do. So hit confirm. And that's pretty well much set up nicely for our API sort of call. And then we can then now focus our attention on seeing what this is going to look like with inside the UI. So let's hit close there. Everything is looking pretty good. Of course, we're not going to see anything at this point because we haven't really told FlutterFlow to do anything. And that is done really easily in FlutterFlow. So what we're going to do, we're going to move over to the list view here. We're just going to choose that because this is the repeated region that we are going to want to show these videos. So what we're going to do, we're going to click on this particular option up here, which is generate dynamic children. You might have probably seen that, but we're going to choose generating children from the variable. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually give it a variable name. So what is the name of every single video that's going to appear in the middle? So we're just going to literally say the kind of video, and then this is the bit where we're now going to actually hook on to the results that we've got inside our API. So if you remember, we've got the app state and we've got the search results. So we've populated our search results at this point with the videos, and we're now going to hook this up. And if I hit confirm, what you'll see is, just hit OK there, you're going to see what looks like a series of videos. And of course, we haven't made that call yet to our API, but it's giving you a bit of a preview to what things might actually look like. So in order to test this out, we can literally just call our test API. And the way we're going to have to do that, though, is we're going to have to give our initial search a value, because if you remember back in the action flow that we've just put a condition on it to say does it actually contain a value. So let's just put a value in there just so that it rings true, and then actually will show us this repeater set of videos. So let's move over to the app state here, and we're just going to go to the initial search, and we're going to give it a default value, and we're just going to put FlutterFlow in here, and that's all that we need to do. Don't need to press enter at this particular stage. We're going to now go back to the UI, and this is where we're now going to want to test things out. So let's just simply hit the test option up here to the top right hand side. So there you go, things are looking fantastic for us. We appear to have the API hooked up quite nicely with inside our application. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to start modifying our UI to start using the fields from our API. We're going to start to make this look a lot nicer than what it currently is at the moment. We're going to get it sort of hooked up to all of the real data from the API. And of course, what that will do is that will set us up and then nicely to then switch out the test API that we've got to the Rapid API that you subscribe to, and we're going to start to then perform queries. We need to create some additional screens for that to happen, but we're heading in the right direction. So So really do hope you enjoyed this particular video. Please do like this video. Please do subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be fleshing out this series, and I'll be creating so much more content around FlutterFlow and no-code application development. So I really hope you got something from this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you very much.